parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
They may not, but you'd agree the Cates family certainly knows how dangerous you are, right?
Well, yes. I could be considered dangerous, yes. I smile because it's funny that all the people in there have no idea who they're messing with.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
This is Carly Gregg, who is in a Mississippi court on multiple charges, including murder and attempted murder. In March 2024, 15-year-old Carly Gregg fatally shot her mother, 40-year-old schoolteacher Ashley Smiley, at their residence. Carly had been abusing marijuana, and her friends started getting worried. Concerned, one of Carly's friends reported to her mom. As a schoolteacher, Carly's mom was furious. When they got home, she went straight to Carly's room to search for the drugs. While she was searching for the drugs, the security camera in the living room captured the moment the unthinkable happened. After shooting her mom, Carly texted her friend to come over and check out what she did. Carly's plan was to get rid of her parents, so she took her mom's phone. Pretending to be her mother, she texted her 39-year-old stepfather, Heath Smiley, asking him to return home. As Mr. Heath stepped through the door, Carly shot him. In a desperate struggle, he wrestled the gun from her and called 911. Realizing she was in big trouble, Carly and her friend fled. Later, the officers arrived and met an injured and devastated Heath. The EMTs treated him for the bullet injury and eventually wheeled him to the hospital. Carly was arrested a few hours later.
All right, sweetie. Look, let me see him step out real quick for me. All right. Hey, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move him around to the front of you, okay? I'm going to move the handcuffs around to the front of you. Okay. All right. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to swab your hands, okay? Right.
During her trial, prosecutors revealed what led to the crime.
Ladies and gentlemen, you'll hear then that Carly Gregg rides in the car home with her mother from school to their house. When they get inside the house, it's only their two dogs, Ashley Smiley and Carly Gregg. Ashley then goes into Carly's room. Ashley finds 4 boxes that contain vape pens. Almost immediately, upon Carly coming inside the house, she walks straight to her parents' bedroom. That she goes straight to her mom's side of the bed and removes a .357 Magnum from under the mattress. She peeks her head around the kitchen to make sure that her mom hasn't come out of her bedroom. We believe the evidence will then show that she walked with that .357 Magnum behind her back, walked in to her own bedroom, and then fired 3 shots into her mother, killing her.
But the defense attorneys chose another angle. They claimed that Carly was also a victim.
We believe the evidence will show that there were 3 victims on March 19th. Ashley Smiley, Heath Smiley, and Carly Gregg. That they were all 3 victims.
They told the court that Gregg suffered from mental health issues and didn't know what she was doing.
Carly had been suffering from a mental illness. That Carly was not aware on March 19th that she had a mental illness. That Carly's parents, who lived with her, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness. That Carly's close friends, who saw her at school every day, were not aware that Carly was suffering from a mental illness, because it's hard to look at a person and understand that they have a mental illness. It's hard to look at a person and know that they have a mental illness. While the events on March 19th were tragic, The events on March 19th were not intentional.
It was now time for the witnesses to take the stand. The first witness was the 911 operator who answered Mr. Heath's call.
At first he said he had grazed the neck. Once during the middle of the call, he then stated that his wife was also shot dead on the floor, and I continued to talk to him until deputies arrived on scene.
During the testimony, Gregg became emotional.
Calm down. What's your name? Okay, calm down for me. Give me your name again. Heath Smiley. Heath Smiley? Yes, sir. Okay, just calm down for me. We got everybody headed. What? She killed her mom. She killed her mom? Yeah, that's what I'm screaming about. Where's the mom? She got to kill me. Where's the mom?
After he testified, the first responding officer also took the stand, and his body cam footage was shown in court.
Hey, come outside for a minute. Hey, come on. Hey, where's your wife at, bud? Where's your wife at? She's on the floor in that room. She's where? Sheriff's office. I need medical here. She ran into the backyard. I tried to follow her. She shot me in the neck. I went in the back door. She tried to shoot me. What's her name, bud? Carly Gregg. Carly Gregg? How old is she? 14. She'll be 15 next month.
The defense insisted that Carly had a mental health crisis and should not be found guilty.
She doesn't know what was going on at that time. We're asking you to find her not guilty by reason of insanity.
However, the prosecution maintained that her actions were not that of a mentally ill person.
I put 3 in my mom, and I got 3 more waiting for my stepdad. You think that sounds like an insane person? No.
It took the jury a few hours to reach a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Carly Madison Gregg, guilty of first-degree murder as charged in the indictment.
Gregg was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. However crazy Gregg's actions were, it doesn't compare to the disturbing behavior of 17-year-old Gavon Ramsay.
He murdered her, and he videoed her, and abused her, and disrobed her, and used jelly, and stuffed the body in a closet, and had time to search and ransack the house and find the wallet.
He was facing murder charges in Medina, Ohio. On April 6, 2018, Ramsay snuck into the house of his 98-year-old neighbor, Margaret Douglas, strangled her, and did inappropriate things to her body. He then recorded the whole crime on his phone, took pictures, stuffed Margaret's body in her closet, and went home. 3 days later, a family member of Margaret called 911 after they did not hear from her.
Roger, please.
Yes, this is Howard Leisure. My aunt lives on Portage Street. A friend of ours stopped over there yesterday to check on her, and she was nowhere to be found.
Okay.
He says papers were on the porch for the last 3 days.
What's her name?
Margaret Douglas. We don't know where she's at. She's 98 years old.
Did she live there by herself?
She lives there by herself, yeah. And she never locks her house.
The police went to do a wellness check and couldn't find her in her house. They began searching the house, and with the help of a nephew, they found her in the closet with bruises all over her head and face. The police also found a key piece of evidence, a plastic glove left at the back of the house. Because Margaret's wallet was missing, police first assumed that it was a burglary gone wrong. So they began questioning family members and friends.
You didn't come by on Thursday or Friday, not Sunday?
No, not Sunday.
And nobody else, you didn't, have any problems with anybody that? Not that I know of. She was. Margaret bosses me everything. That's why it's so just horrible.
However, when the DNA from the glove didn't match any of them, the officers ruled them out. While the investigation was still going on, police got a report of a carjacking in the neighborhood. They traced the theft to a man named Zachary. Zachary was a petty thief already known to the police, and when he was questioned, he revealed that his partner in crime was none other than Ramsay. The police then brought Ramsay for questioning about the carjacking.
Just the act of him getting the payback, I guess, I don't know, that's, like, it's karma, really. Like, if you're gonna do that, then I'm gonna rob you.
Don't thank me so much. There's something else you need to tell us? You've already gotten yourself in trouble, so.
I know, and I don't need I don't know, but the carjacking, it was me. I'm gonna be honest about it.
Before the officers let him go, they got permission from his mom to check his phone. When the officers examined his phone, they were shocked to see the pictures and videos of Margaret's body and recordings of everything he did. They brought him back into the interrogation room. Initially, he denied everything.
There was no reason that we would find your DNA inside her house because we swabbed the hell out of that house.
When the officers now told him that they had gone through his phone, he broke down and admitted to the murder.
Were you in her house for a little while before you woke her up?
I mean, I came up on the porch, and I didn't even know what I was gonna do. And I looked in the window and everything. I don't know, I felt like going into a house. It's like the biggest adrenaline rush I could get.
He confessed details of what he did.
By the time I even realized what I was doing, it was too late to stop and everything.
So when she died, was she on the couch or on the floor?
Floor. It was like adrenaline and shock at the same time. So like, 1 second I'm like, I don't know, adrenaline. Like now, and the next thing you know, it's like complete overload. I don't know what's happening.
The police had to inform the devastated parents of the evidence they had.
I want to talk a little bit about what's on the phone. All the phone contained images of Margaret before and after her death, as well as videos of your son with her. With her, engaging in acts with her. Was she still alive when he was doing that? No, I don't believe. Oh my God.
Ramsay was charged as an adult. In court, the prosecution was determined to get him behind bars.
Gavon Ramsay entered that home. He did it with precision. Not only did he do it with precision, Your Honor, he did it with a time clock. Because even though he stalked her, and even though he murdered her, and he videoed her, and abused her, and disrobed her, and used jelly, and stuffed the body in a closet, and had time to search and ransack the house and find the wallet, he was always mindful of the time, Your Honor. Because by his own statement, he knew he had to be home before his parents woke up.
Although Ramsay was rational enough to check the time, the defense argued that he had mental health issues and should be treated, not imprisoned.
Children are constitutionally and developmentally different from adults. And so his age is a factor that you must consider. Why is that significant? Because Gavon, as a 17-year-old boy, can engage in treatment. He can engage in programming that is available through the Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. What have we heard from the lay minister who's been working with him? That Gavon is seeking out change. Gavon is seeking the Lord. Gavon has already expressed his desires to engage in educational programming. Children who are going to be sentenced to life without the eligibility of parole, that should be saved for the worst offenders. Children who are irreparably corrupt or broken, who cannot be saved. There has been nothing presented by the psychiatric evidence to indicate that this young man is not capable of being saved.
Ramsay was found guilty, but before he was sentenced, Margaret's family spoke about their loss.
I find him to be pathetic and a coward and someone that preyed on the most vulnerable person that he could find and attack her in her most vulnerable moment. He broke into her house, watched her sleeping, and took videos of her sleeping. He then held her against her will, hit her, and strangled her. And I believe that he planned to kill numerous people and used my aunt as a warm-up, so to speak, for those other killings.
He pointed out how important she was to them and the community.
She loved being alive. She often talked that she just couldn't wait until she turned 100.
Ramsay's mom also took the stand. She blamed herself for her son's actions.
You can't make me believe that my decision wasn't the ultimate cause of all of this. To simply say I'm sorry to a victim's family, that's not enough. You can't undo their heartache. You can't undo our heartache.
But insisted that her son was a good child who took the wrong part.
He's loyal to a fault. He's compassionate. And this thing that we're sitting here discussing is not who my son is. I don't care how much you want to pluck out evil facts. That's not my son.
Ramsay also apologized for his actions.
I wrote this down because I knew I wouldn't know what to say on the spot. I don't know how to explain why all this happened. I don't think there really is an explanation to begin with. I think about it all the time. And I would take it back in a heartbeat if I could. I feel terrible for what I've done. And I would never do anything like that again. I'm so sorry for what I did. I constantly live in regret and shame because of it. I wish I had the words to express how sorry I really am.
In the end, Ramsay was sentenced to life without parole. However, just when you thought you'd seen it all, another convict surpasses Ramsay's wild actions.
I could be considered dangerous, yes. I smile because it's funny that all the people in there have no idea who they're messing with.
Enter 19-year-old Christopher Gribble, who's in a New Hampshire court for multiple charges, including murder. On October 4th, 2009, Gribble conspired with 17-year-old Stephen Spader, Quinn Glover, and William Marks, and invaded the house of 42-year-old Kimberly Gates.
Kimberly Gates, a devoted mother and wife, a nurse.
The woman was asleep with her 11-year-old daughter, Jamie, when the teenagers attacked them several times with a machete and fled.
Kimberly's scream woke her up, and Christopher went straight for her.
The attackers ran to the home of their friend, 18-year-old Autumn Savoy, whom they had planned to act as their alibi in case detectives came knocking. Unfortunately, Kimberly didn't survive. But unknown to the attackers, Jamie, who was gravely wounded, was conscious enough to call 911. Detectives swung into action. Savoy couldn't maintain his alibi, so the teenagers were arrested. In court, the prosecution detailed the level of violence the teenagers carried out.
And this is what the defendant used against both of his victims. Break in and kill whoever was inside. For fun, for kicks.
The responding officer also testified to the kind of carnage he witnessed at the scene.
I saw a young girl laying on the floor. I observed that she was completely covered in blood from her head to her toe. I observed that she had major injuries and major trauma, to include lacerations to her face, extremities, as well as I observed that part of her foot was missing. I got close to her. I told her that I was a police officer, I was there to help. She then said in a whisper while shaking that she thought her mommy was dead.
Quinn Glover also took the stand. He revealed that Gribble and Spader were the masterminds, and they were the ones that carried out the attack.
Referring to Mr. Spader, do you see him here in the courtroom?
I do, sir.
Please point him out and identify an article of clothes that he's wearing.
To the right of the table, in the blue suit, he talked about eating people, roasting people, putting heads on stakes, making scenes for the press.
He apologized for his role in the violence.
But every morsel of food that I eat, every breath of air that I take, every beat of my heart, I think of what we have done. I know that there is nothing that I can do that will ever atone for my terrible actions.
William Marks also testified to his role in the crime.
You stood in that doorway and you watched them both attack those people, didn't you?
Yes.
Did you once, just once, try and stop them?
No.
Did you try and help him or Jamie once?
No.
At his sentencing, the judge reserved some words for him.
You planned and you watched and you celebrated the unspeakable horrors that you inflicted on an innocent mother and child. Just because you testified against your co-defendants and we call that cooperation does not mean that there is any redemption for you here today.
Marks was sentenced to 30 to 60 years, while Glover will spend 20 to 40 years in prison. But that wasn't all. When Gribble was questioned after their arrest, he readily confessed to what he did.
Steve and I are very similar. Steven's Vader. Both of us grew up with problems in our families. Technically, we're both sociopaths. He said, yeah, we're just going to go in there, grab some stuff. If anybody's there, we're going to kill them, have some fun. I agreed. The mom sat up in the bed, started asking who was there, what was going on, tried to turn on the lamp and it didn't turn on.
Yep.
And when she did that, Steve started hacking at the bed with the machete. I was controlled, but I didn't really feel much of anything. I thought I would, but I didn't. The mom was obviously not going to make it. The girl, I was pretty sure, wasn't going to. She was completely out there. There was blood all over the place.
But during his trial, he tried to use the insanity plea.
When were you legally insane?
When was I legally insane? Well, I think technically I'm legally insane now is what my defense is. That I am...
Right now?
Yes.
You're a careful criminal, right?
Yes.
You're saying you're legally insane.
I'm saying as my defense, yes.
Do you not believe in your defense?
I do believe in my defense.
So you're saying you were legally insane?
Yes.
He also claimed to have been abused as a kid.
I'd get to the point at night where I just really wanted to sneak in my dad's bedroom, pull the gun out and shoot myself in the head. Because I just wanted it to end.
Gribble did everything to absolve himself of the crime. He pointed to Spader as the brains behind the attack.
At some point, Steve said, finish him off. He threw a pillow onto the mom's face because she was still making like kind of burbling, not really breathing, but like raspy burbling noises.
He shocked the court when he described the events that happened.
The only thought that really entered my mind at that point was, wow, this looks just like a CSI scene. Because it was. I mean, it was just like something that they would have in a CSI episode. And I stabbed her once or twice in the chest. Then somehow she started to pull away from me. I remember sometime during that she said something like, why are you doing this?
But the prosecution was not moved.
You're a dangerous guy, right?
I could be considered dangerous, yes.
People in the jail have no idea how dangerous you are.
No, they don't. I smile because it's funny that all the people in there have no idea who they're messing with.
They may not, but you'd agree the Cates family certainly knows how dangerous you are, right?
Well, yes.
You made sure of that, right?
They needed to prove that he was mentally competent, so they called his therapist to the stand. She noted that although Gribble was sick, he wasn't insane.
I was informed that he had thoughts of wanting to kill his parents.
Gribble had undergone psychological testing a few years back, and the prosecutors brought the psychologist to testify.
What treatment would be recommended?
Long-term psychotherapy, especially when I found out that he had expressed homicidal ideation.
Tell me about that, how you found out that he had homicidal ideation.
Well, after I finished the evaluation, she invited me in she was very concerned. He expressed significant homicidal ideation, which I was not aware of. And that raised my concern about his dangerousness.
Gribble's mother also testified about the homicidal ideation.
At some point along the line in Chris's seeing Dr. Tallarico, she called us and said she wanted to meet briefly with both of us. We came in and she said, I need to talk with you about a number of issues that have come up during counseling. She said that there had been an issue of what she called inappropriate touching with somebody at church. And I said, what does that mean? She said somebody touched him inappropriately. I said, did someone molest my child? And she said, no, it was just inappropriate touching. Somebody put their arm around him. And I said, okay. And she said, and also you need to know he's made death threats against both of you. And we said, is it serious? And she said, no, I think it's just, you know, how teenagers say, oh, I wish you were dead, and he's blowing off steam, and he's not a danger to anyone. It's not a problem.
So was that the first time you found out about
That was the first time I found out about it.
And at least what you were told, it didn't sound serious.
No, and she said, I have to tell you legally, I have requirements when there have been death threats made. I have to tell you and inform you. She said, but in my opinion, there's no issue there at all. He's not a danger to himself or to you.
After some deliberations, the jury found him guilty, but before he was sentenced, the father and husband of the victims, who had been away on a business trip at the time of the crime, addressed the court.
Through these accounts, I've heard my wife's last breath. I have listened to my child's screams. I have watched as Jamie's perfect little body was mutilated and tortured. In the last moments of her life, the thought of her daughter dying next to her was more than she could bear.
The judge sentenced Gribble to life, but not without giving him a piece of her mind.
I'm not going to go into the bottomless aggravating factors that exist in this case, but I believe the record will thoroughly support my belief that infinity is not enough jail time for you. Accordingly, you are sentenced on the remaining convictions to the maximum penalty allowed by law to be served consecutively.
Autumn Savoy, the alibi connoisseur, was charged with conspiracy and was sentenced to 5 to 12 years. He was paroled in 2015. 11-year-old Jamie went on to make a full recovery.
Just living every day like it's the last, right?
Christopher Gribble and his gang are still serving their sentence in prison. However, this wasn't the only time kids did something crazy.
This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this. Okay. And he couldn't fight back.
The case of Brian Cohee, who was in a Colorado court for murder. In February 2021, 19-year-old Cohee tracked down and fatally stabbed 69-year-old Warren Barnes. Cohee has been fascinated with death and serial killers since he was young. After the murder, he took some parts of Barnes's body home. On March 1st, his mom discovered the body parts and called 911.
911 is John. What's the address emergency?
I found something in my son's closet wrapped in a plastic bag.
Okay, what was it?
I think it's a human head.
It's a what?
I think it's a human head.
Why do you think it's that?
Because it looks like it's all an ear.
Is your son there now?
He just pulled up. We wanted to make sure he was here before we called.
How old is he?
19. He's had a little bit of a fascination with the morbid, but he was channeling it, I thought, into becoming a crime scene investigator, but not so much.
Does he have any weapons in his room, or do you guys have any in the house?
I think that he has a shotgun, but we can certainly remove it immediately before he gets in his room. There's a second bag, though. I don't know what's in it. I didn't open it.
I'm sorry. Did he took the second bag out of the closet?
I took the second bag out of the closet and put it in the sink.
Where's Brian now?
I think he's still outside.
And you're in the backyard now?
I am, yes, because I don't want him to hear me.
When officers arrived and met Cohee, he shocked them.
Okay, so parents have some concerns of some stuff they may have found in your room?
Yeah, I believe so.
And what would it be?
A human head and hands.
Do you have anything on you he's going to cut, poke, hurt, stick me anything without reaching for nothing? Don't reach for nothing.
My phone and my wallet, that's
okay.
it.
Well, I'm going to have you face that way. Put your hands on top of your head for me real quick. I just want to make sure you interlace your fingers for me real quick, all right?
He was taken into custody, and during his interrogation, he was very open and confessed to his actions.
3 layers of gloves. Because plastic gloves can betray their users because they're so thin, those vinyl gloves, by putting your fingerprints through. So I put on 2, 3 on one hand. I took the knife, I pulled back the canvas, and I stabbed his neck. Okay. He was panicking at first in his old man voice. He was in his 50s. I know why I call him old man. He was saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing? Why? Ah!" And I just kept on stabbing his neck. Is it okay if I do a demonstration? Oh, yeah. This is him. I was straddled on top of him like this. Okay. And he couldn't fight back. It was actually surprisingly easy. I was barely breaking a sweat. I thought, oh, this guy, he's going to be tough. But no, it was actually surprisingly easy. And
During the time I was growling, I was so excited, so rushed up on adrenaline, and I was just, and I paused, and he said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "I've been wanting to do this for a long fucking time." The head I put, because it was starting to stink, I was planning on throwing the head and hands away. Okay. On the trash bag, and not in the kitchen trash, but they were both in trash bags. The head was in a trash bag, I tied up the trash bag.
He told detectives the grisly details of the crime.
I was stabbing his head anywhere in that general area. I stabbed his head multiple times.
How about his chest, his stomach?
His chest I stabbed once through the ribs. I sliced open his belly, carved up his leg.
Why did you do that?
I was just doing everything I thought of at the moment.
In court, his poor mother couldn't stop herself from tears after the evidence was shown in court. Cohee pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the court found him guilty. Before he was sentenced, his mother begged the court to forgive his son.
Continue to live in a place of darkness and sadness, and that my own pain doesn't compare to your loss. I want you to know how sorry I am.
Brian Cohee was sentenced to life without parole. Brian Cohee is a prime example of a kid acting crazy. However, could Brendan Depa be considered even a little crazier? Depa, a 17-year-old high school student, is in court for aggravated battery on a school board employee in Florida. On February 21st, 2024, Depa attacked Joan Nowsch, a teacher's aide assigned to him at school, after the teacher allegedly confiscated his Nintendo Switch.
As a student pushes a teacher's aide to the floor, then kicks and pummels her without mercy. It's a savage beating, and it takes 4 other staff members to drag him off the unconscious woman, who is left with multiple injuries.
Nowsch sustained a severe concussion, 5 broken ribs, and hearing loss. Depa suffers from autism and ADHD. A few hours after he was restrained, officers took him into custody.
Don't make your situation any worse than it is, okay?
I'm dead.
What?
I'm dead.
In court, his mother begged the court to let her son go.
I beg you to let him come home with me. I want my son back.
Depa's defense counsel also asked the judge to have mercy on the teenager.
He is disabled. He can't navigate the world like you and I can.
The judge refused, citing Depa's lack of remorse and apology. He also insisted that Depa needs to be punished because of the act.
We started with a competency hearing in this case, and we heard from experts at that point in time. We've heard from additional experts today. And I think all of the experts all agree that Mr. Depa does not have an intellectual disability. Although this event was senselessly violent, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that at the time of this event, Mr. Depa was 17 years of age. However, this was not an isolated event. The history goes back, resulting in a number of Baker Acts. I heard as many as 6. I could only find 3. Describing the problems as yelling, screaming, hitting. And then, of course, we have this incident that happens in February of 2023. It captures senseless, extreme violence. Mr. Depa has never expressed not even a single bit of remorse.
Depa was eventually sentenced to 5 years in prison with 15 years of probation. However crazy Brendan Depa's actions were, how does it compare to shooting a cop?
Jonathan Belton, you shattered my happiness, my hopes, and my dreams, and for that I will never forgive you.
Like in the case of 16-year-old Jonathan Belton, who's facing murder charges in Illinois. On December 28, 2008, Officer Mason Samborski pulled Belton over. Belton was driving without a license, so the officer drove him to a supposed relative's apartment to identify him. Instead, Belton gave him directions to his girlfriend's house. There, an altercation ensued, and Belton fatally shot the officer.
While on the stairs, the defendant says to Officer Samborski, "Get off of me." Defendant never complied with the officer. He never stopped resisting. He never relaxed. He just kept trying to struggle and fight with the officer. And the officer was just trying to get control of defendant Belton.
In court, Belton's girlfriend was called to testify.
I saw Officer Mason laying down on the ground and Johnny standing there on the side of him with the gun in his hand.
When you saw defendant Jonathan Belton with the gun in his right hand,
you tell where it was pointed towards?
Yeah.
Tell the jury where Lieutenant Belton had the handgun.
It was pointed sort of like his upper body, somewhere towards his head.
An officer who arrived at the scene after the 911 call following the shooting also took the stand to testify.
Immediately attempted to render aid. I checked for vitals first. I found no pulse and no breathing. There was a large wound in the back of his head.
After hours of deliberations, the jury finally reached a verdict.
Murder of a peace officer. Guilty as charged of murder of a peace officer. Count 2, possession of firearm and the commission of a felony. Guilty as charged of felony firearm.
Prior to sentencing, the family of the deceased officer addressed him.
I hope that one day you regret what you did and realize what you could have done differently. You are alive, and your family gets to see you and talk to you. We don't get to see or talk to Mason ever again. We get nothing but pain and wonderment of what our future could have been.
The victim's sister also spoke in court, but was interrupted by a man in the gallery.
Jonathan Belton, it is over.
Hey. Remove him from the courtroom.
When Belton was given the chance to speak, he told his family that he would be out soon.
We know what really happened. I know what really happened. The Lord knows what really happened. I love you all to death. And I'm going to see y'all soon.
Jonathan Belton was sentenced to life imprisonment. However, Jonathan Belton isn't alone in their courtroom actions.
Cries of agony outside the Maplewood Terrace complex in late July after 3 people were shot and killed inside an apartment.
Let's not forget the infamous incident involving 16-year-old Russell Burell, who's in a Rhode Island court on murder charges. On July 30th, 2012, Burell fatally shot 3 people in a housing complex.
22-year-old Shamika Barros, her boyfriend, 23-year-old Michael Martin, and a friend of theirs, 22-year-old Damian Cologne.
In court, the prosecution revealed details of the shooting.
Bullets fired by Russell Burell struck and killed both Michael Martin and Damian Cologne. As Russell Burell was firing at Mr. Martin and Mr. Cologne in the kitchen, Shamika Barros woke up from the couch in the living room.
One of the victim's grandmothers addressed the court.
You took the life of her son, my grandson, for what? You committed a horrible, evil act, murdering 3 precious persons, resulting from your sick soul. I don't desire revenge, but I do ask for justice and to impose the maximum penalty as the law allows.
The mother of the victim also made a statement.
Every day comes with the struggle of having to walk past his bedroom door. Another day that shall pass without hearing his voice or seeing a smile that would light up a room. There's a void and a hole and an emptiness in my life that will never be filled.
Burell was sentenced to life imprisonment. However, while some may attribute Burell's actions to mental illness, it pales in comparison to the unfathomable behavior of Cyntoia Brown, who's facing murder charges in Tennessee. On August 7th, 2004, 16-year-old Brown fatally shot Johnny Allen.
I killed Johnny Allen. He's gone. I thought he was reaching for a gun.
And then what did you do?
I shot him.
Allen had picked Brown from the road, and they had agreed on $150 for the night. But while at Allen's home, Brown shot him, stole his money, and fled.
First, he was just stroking me, but then it's like he just grabbed me, like, in between my legs. Like, he just grabbed it real hard, and he just gave me this look. It was like a very fierce look. And then it just sent these chills up my spine. I'm thinking he's gonna hit me or do something like that. But then he rolls over and reaches, like he's reaching to the side of the bed or something. So I'm thinking, no, he's not finna hit me. He's finna get a gun.
And what did you do at that time?
I just grabbed the gun and I shot him.
According to the police, the teenager was a victim of child sex trafficking and was owned by a pimp called Cutthroat.
I remember one time, the first time he did something to me is when he choked me and I passed out. Because he said I thought he was a joke.
Following investigations, police arrested Brown. She was found guilty and sentenced to life with parole after 51 years. However, in 2017, her case went viral, and the Tennessee Parole Board arranged a hearing.
I just wanted to say thank you first. I know a lot of people get to see you, but I have prayed for a very long time
too big for me with you.
During the hearing, she revealed what she went through.
What else did he do to you?
He talked real bad to me and jacked me up. He pulled me by my hair and dragged me and stuff. He put guns in the cane, told me to strap and stuff like that, getting that out with other people.
Did you ever have sex with the guys?
When I put a gun up to me, I did.
But she revealed that she is now a changed person.
I was 16, I did horrible things. And I have carried that with me this whole time. I have a college degree now. I have a family, a whole new family, a whole new community of people who love me, who believe in me, who support me. I've been able to help people, which is amazing. Young people, young kids, they listen.
In the end, the governor granted her clemency and she was released from prison after serving 15 years. However, let's compare the jaw-dropping action of Cyntoia Brown to the astonishing behavior of 17-year-old Dakota White, who's facing murder charges in Georgia. In 2016, White and his 18-year-old friend, Brandon Warren, lured 18-year-old Sam Poss into a house and ended his life.
Who was with you when Sam left this world? Brandon. Brandon don't want to, so we're going to kill ourselves together. Before we kill ourselves, I wanted to go fight to take life.
In court, Poss's mother addressed the teenage killers.
The young man strangled and stabbed my son for his own curiosity, no other reason, and then behaved as if it never happened. Should never be let out of prison in his lifetime.
Before he was sentenced, White apologized for his actions.
Sorry doesn't bring back Sam, nor does it make anybody feel better. Yet in almost 2 years, the only thing I've ever wanted to say is I am sorry.
The defense tried several times to get him out on a technicality.
We were all under the impression that community existed and there wasn't much we could do about it.
But in the end, White and his accomplice were sentenced to life without parole.
He exhibits an irretrievable depravity which forecloses any reasonable prospects for rehabilitation. Sadly, he is permanently incarcerated. Accordingly, the defendant is sentenced to life without the possibility of parole.
The teenagers are still serving their sentences in jail. However, while it was clear that these teenagers were clearly disturbed, their actions are nothing compared to that of 12-year-old Cristian Fernandez.
Did you push him tonight?
To the bed?
No, did you do anything for his head to hit anything tonight?
Well, we were just carrying books, and then it fell on him.
That's not the truth, Cristian. Is it?
Who was facing murder charges in Florida. On March 14th, 2011, Fernandez fatally assaulted his 2-year-old brother, David Gallardiago. Fernandez was taken into custody and questioned.
These are called your constitutional rights. And I know you're 12 years old, right? So tell me what really happened tonight.
I put him to carry books.
And then what happened?
And then it fell on him.
So then what else happened?
And then they fell on him, and then he fell.
Well, you know, this side of his head is really injured up with a lot of bruising and swelling.
Mm-hmm.
So, and his nose is really swelled up. Did you do anything for him to make him hit his head?
What do you mean? Like, I pushed him?
Yeah. Did you push him tonight?
To the bed?
No. Did you do anything for his head to hit anything tonight?
Well, we were just carrying books, and then it fell on him.
That's not the truth, Cristian. Is it?
During the interrogation, he revealed that he knew that what he did was wrong, but years of abuse from his stepdad got the better of him.
So what happened? What happened to the side of his head?
I pushed him against a bookshelf.
Why'd you push him? Were you angry about something?
Yes.
What were you angry about?
What my stepdad did to me. I felt bad because then I realized what I actually done. Because I wasn't really thinking about what I was doing when I pushed him. I was just thinking about my stepdad.
How many times did you push him into the shelf?
Twice.
Where was he bleeding from?
From his lungs.
Okay. Anywhere else?
Like his mouth.
His mouth was bleeding?
Mm-hmm.
Susanna, Fernandez's mother, had failed to take the baby to hospital for 8 hours while the boy remained unconscious. The detectives wanted to know the reason behind her actions.
So when you got home, you saw knocked out, as you said, right? Knocked out in the bed.
On the bottom bunk?
On the bottom bed.
Did you see anything knocked over in the room or any blood anywhere?
I saw a little bit of blood on the floor.
Okay, where at on the floor?
Let's say like the stairs were here, and the blood was like on
Okay,
there.
so kind of in front of the stairs.
Mhm.
Okay, Cristian did it.
What do you? How did he do it?
He got mad at her and he took her by the head and smacked twice into the bookshelf.
Susanna was charged with manslaughter and is facing 30 years in prison. Cristian was sentenced to 7 years in juvenile prison and was released in 2018 when he was 19. However, while Cristian's behavior was shocking, it's nothing compared to the utter mayhem caused by 15-year-old Alyssa Bustamante.
It doesn't matter whether the body's burned or not. They'll go through and do an autopsy, and they will discover every injury on her body and the cause of death.
He was facing murder charges in Missouri. On October 21st, 2009, 9-year-old Elizabeth Olton was lured into the woods. There, Bustamante fatally stabbed her and then strangled her before burying her in a shallow grave. The teenager then left for church. Following investigations, Bustamante was brought in for questioning. Initially, she denied any wrongdoing.
She died. How did she die? 9-year-old girls don't just die.
We were messing her out. Then she fell back and hit her head.
Was her throat cut?
Then she admitted to digging a hole.
You dug it ahead of time, didn't you?
I've done that hole on Wednesday.
Before you played with her?
Yes.
But she eventually broke down and confessed.
You knew you were going to kill her. And then you cut her throat. Is that what happened?
Yes.
A pocket knife? A kitchen knife?
Kitchen knife.
Okay. Did you stab her?
Afterwards.
How many times did you stab her?
2.
Two.
I think.
The police found Olton's body 2 days after Bustamante confessed.
Basically, the main reason for accepting the offer was to avoid the absolute certainty of life without parole. If there was another option, then there would have been no reason to have accepted that offer.
She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 35 years. However, when emotions run high in court, the actions of Bustamante and Erich Nowsch leave us questioning sanity itself.
They blamed you for this?
Can I stop you right there?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I did not pull the trigger, and I was not there that night.
Nowsch is in a Las Vegas court for a senseless murder. In February 2015, Nowsch fatally shot the 44-year-old mother of 4, Tammy Myers, during a road rage incident.
Do you ever think about Tammy?
I have. I mean, I didn't know her real well. She's always been an upbeat, happy woman. You know, I've seen her walk her dogs a few times.
Following his arrest, Nowsch immediately confessed during questioning.
Everywhere I went, that car was there. Like, it was there. Like, and I just had threats. I had my arm out the window, always shooting.
In court, the husband of the slain woman was very angry with Nowsch.
Am I gonna forgive you? Never. Ever. Neither one of you will get my forgiveness. And especially Erich Nowsch. I hope for me and mine, you burn in hell and you get what you have coming to you today. Because you, Mr. are an animal.
Now it's time for Nowsch to learn his fate.
Life in prison, possibly parole beginning after 10 years. On the weapons enhancement, a consecutive term of, maximum term of 120 months, minimum term of 48 months.
28-year-old Derrick Andrews, who was the driver, was also sentenced to 5 to 15 years. Both men are still serving their sentences in prison. However, while this reaction could certainly be dismissed as an effect of drugs, the same can't be said for the case of 16-year-old Samuel Gizaw.
Why get a bail when you murder somebody?
Exactly.
They don't get to come back. So why should you be in society?
He was facing charges of murder in Washington. On July 3rd, 2024, Gizaw was fighting with some boys when he fired his gun at them.
Alberta, Michelle, radio. We're overhead. We're looking.
But accidentally hit 13-year-old Jada. Unfortunately, Jada lost her life. During Gizaw's bail hearing, Jada's mother made an emotional statement.
Today is not just our court hearing, it is also the first day of school. Jada would have started 8th grade today, but instead she will always be a 7th grader.
Gizaw pled not guilty, hoping for a lesser bond.
And Mr. Gizaw, you understand what you're charged with?
Yes, Your Honor.
And what is your plea?
Not guilty.
The prosecutor insists that he poses a danger and that the bond amount should be increased.
There is a long history of Mr. Gizaw being violent, finding guns to be fun, all of his friends being of the same nature, and he poses a danger to this community. Additionally, Your Honor, the firearm used in this incident has not been located.
The defense argued that Gizaw's actions were based on self-defense.
This was an ambush, and he was going to get the snot kicked out of him, and that was their intent. But for the fact that he had a gun on him, that's what would have happened.
Gizaw's initial bond of about $50,000 was overturned after the judge saw social media images of him posing with guns. His bond was raised to $2 million. His case is still ongoing. However, as we see Gizaw's disastrous actions, it brings to mind the strikingly similar actions of 16-year-old Simeon Adams.
Freak little red, he innocent, he ain't do none of that.
How do you know?
How do I know? Get these cameras out of my face.
Who's facing murder charges in Indianapolis. On March 30th, 2014, Adams fatally shot Erich Douglas.
The teen suspect allegedly used a stolen gun for that murder.
Douglas was on his morning walk when Adams attacked. Douglas's devastated sister couldn't hold herself.
Angry, it's gonna be my word of choice. Surprised, shocked, frustrated, sickened.
In the end, Adams was sentenced to 55 years in prison. However, it's not the first time a convict has lost control in court.
I just came home and my son said put a knife to my throat and he cut my hand and I'm like bleeding everywhere and my son's freaking out.
Just like what happened in the notorious case of Adam Matos, who's facing charges of murder in Florida. In August 2014, the disgruntled ex fatally shot his ex-girlfriend, her parents, and her new boyfriend. He then stayed in the house and tried to hide their bodies. However, he was soon arrested. In court, he claimed self-defense.
I realize now that she probably wasn't trying to kill me. I was just out of it and so paranoid and in shock.
The loved ones of the deceased also tore into him.
There's not a single day that goes by that your son does not think about his family that he lost at the hands of a murderer. He loves his mother, he loves his grandparents, and he loves us. He does not love you. You stole his whole world. You ruined his whole life, and we are here to pick up the pieces.
Needless to say, the jury found him guilty.
The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree. The defendant is guilty of murder in the first degree.
Before he was sentenced, the judge gave him a piece of her mind.
This was the most selfish, self-centered, evil thing that I've ever heard. That you took the stand and you said that you did all of this for your son is ridiculous. Your son was in the house when this occurred. He was either in the room or within 65, 70 feet of when you shot his mother, shot his grandfather, and then waited 5 hours, by your own admission, to walk downstairs and beat his grandmother to death. In those 5 hours, you must have sat in that house with your son. He was there. It's 6 o'clock in the evening. He's not asleep. He's not locked in his room. You sat there with him and went downstairs and finished off his grandmother. And you did that for your own selfish reasons.
Now, the heartless lover learns his sentence.
Count 1 and count 4 to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
He will spend the rest of his life in prison.